Internship work is crushing me and I really need to blow off some steam. My best friend sent over photos of guys with well-defined abs, yet I felt totally indifferent. I have seen the absolute best. Blake Rayner's lean, powerful waist is absolutely unreal. Sadly, he turned me down when I confessed my feelings to him. I texted my best friend heartbroken, "No more daydreaming." Someone posted a photo of Blake on my social media feed. He was at a swimming pool, with smooth broad shoulder back lines and rock-hard defined abs. I switched back to our chat window and typed, "I want him." 3 minutes later, a new message popped up on my phone from Blake, "Come over." Before we keep reading, please subscribe to this channel and leave a comment telling us where you are listening from. Internship pressure weighed heavy on me, and I longed to unwind. It was lunch break, and the whole office stayed quiet. I opened my social media app and looked through photos of muscular guys my best friend had sent me. My expression stayed blank, none of them impressed me. After all, I had seen the very best, Blake Rayner's incredible physique, at the company team building event last week by the outdoor swimming pool. Blake had just climbed out of the water, and he swept his soaking dark hair backward with one hand. Water droplets ran down his pectoral muscles, traced over his firm abs, and vanished under the waistband of his black swim trunks. That waist, those lines, that quiet raw physical power. It was breathtaking. Sigh. Unfortunately, he rejected my confession, so there was no chance for me. Feeling miserable, I texted my best friend, "Invite your classmates out for dinner next time. Since I can't have Blake, I'm done fantasizing." I laid my head down on my desk but could not fall asleep, so I scrolled my social feed again. Someone had shared another poolside photo of Blake. The man faced away from the camera, hoisting himself up onto the pool edge. His back muscles looked tight and streamlined, with deep defined grooves across his waist and abdomen glistening under sunlight. He gave off this mix of cold aloofness and unapologetic sex appeal. The visual impact hit me hard. He returned to my chat thread and acted on my reckless impulse. "I want him." I set my phone aside and walked to the restroom to splash cold water on my face, hoping to clear my head clouded by good-looking men. When I got back to my workstation, a brand new notification popped up on my screen. It was a message from Blake Rayner. I froze in shock and quickly unlocked my smartphone. Blake, come over. Me, what? Oh my god, no. I sent that message to the wrong person. At the top of the chat window was my best friend's new silly cat profile picture. Blake happened to use nearly the exact same cat avatar. Talk about terrible, perfectly timed bad luck. Thanks a lot, viral internet cat meme. I wanted to teleport myself straight off this planet. Footsteps echoed down the office hallway, and I snapped my head upright. Please do not let that be Blake walking toward me. We were both interning at the same downtown Seattle corporation. He was the heir to the Rayner family conglomerate, sent down from the CEO's office to gain real-world work experience. The Rayners held enormous influence across Washington state, a top-tier wealthy family far out of my league. I only learned about his powerful background after my confession got turned down, when I overheard other interns gossiping in the restroom stall next to me. Who could have guessed how quickly things had spiraled? Within 3 short days, I got rejected, shot my shot anyway, and basically flirted with the billionaire heir by accident. My internship evaluation felt like it was about to fly right out the window, and in 10 short minutes, we were supposed to sit together inside the same conference room for a team meeting. This was a disaster. My mind raced a mile a minute. Calm down, Lexi. You can fix this. My fingers trembled over the keyboard as I stared hard at the screen, typing, "This is actually a wrong message." Lexi. Yes. I lifted my head by reflex. That one glance almost made me drop my phone onto the floor. Blake stood beside my workstation. He wore a light gray dress shirt with sleeves rolled up to his mid-forearm. On his wrist sat an understated luxury watch worth more money than I would earn in years. He held a stack of printed documents in one hand, his features calm, his eyelashes long and delicate. Even just standing still, he radiated striking good looks paired with cold, distant reserve. Beneath that muted dress shirt lay those impressively defined abs I could not stop thinking about. "I know who you are." His voice carried a cool, deep timbre. I forced myself to push those vivid mental images away instantly. I replied flatly, "Uh-huh." I thought to myself, how could I not know? 3 other female interns and I all got turned down by him when we confessed our feelings on the very same day. He glanced at me and said nothing more, then held the documents out toward me. I was still trying to figure out how to explain my terrible text mishap and hesitated to take the papers. Noticing my hesitation, his cold eyes shifted from my face over to my brightly lit phone screen. This was my perfect chance to explain myself. I opened my mouth. Actually, this was just a joke. Blake, from the neighboring desk, one of his close friends, son of a high-level corporate executive, hurried over waving his cell phone. Grinning widely, he said, "Remember that incident at the downtown nightclub the other night? That guy sent people to beg you, told me to tell you it was all just a joke. He's pleading for mercy, hoping you will let it slide." While speaking, he glanced back and forth between Blake and me. "What are you two talking about?" I bit back my words and prepared to say I had texted the wrong contact. Before I could get the sentence out, Blake spoke first. "What time works for you?" His friend burned with curiosity. "Time? What plans are you two making?" Blake ignored his friend and kept his gaze fixed firmly on me. His friend leaned in, full of nosy excitement. "Can I tag along too?" I stammered awkwardly. "We are scheduling the meeting time." His friend made a dismissive face. "Oh, a meeting. The meeting is starting in 10 minutes anyway." Blake looked over at his friend and said in a neutral tone, "This is our small group private meeting, we will be working overtime." Me? Overtime work? Was it really the kind of office overtime I was imagining? Blake's expression stayed completely unreadable. "What time are you free?" Me? 9 o'clock? His friend clicked his tongue. "Tough workload, really making people burn the midnight oil, huh?" Blake simply replied, His friend walked away, and Blake also prepared to leave. Before stepping off, he threw a faint glance my direction. Blake had charming almond-shaped eyes, gorgeous, with glimmering irises that felt almost teasing. I feared I would be the one stuck working overtime tonight. The mind-numbing team meeting gave me plenty of time to replay my terrible text mistake inside my head. The more I thought about it, the stranger the whole situation felt. Surely he was only joking. No sane person would take that random text seriously. Rows of dense data tables scrolled across the projector screen. Over the tops of my coworkers' heads, my eyes kept drifting involuntarily toward Blake. He sat there expressionless, occasionally typing notes into his laptop, his fingers long and clean-looking, every button on his shirt collar set neatly fastened, and the curve of his Adam's apple carried that quiet, chaste sex appeal. I pinched my own thigh hard to snap myself out of my daydream. The internship team will finish analyzing this section and submit a preliminary framework by noon tomorrow. The project manager's voice pulled me back to reality. "Blake and Lexi, you two take primary charge of this assignment." My heart skipped a beat, and I automatically looked toward Blake. He happened to lift his head and meet my eyes. His look remained strictly businessmanly. He gave an almost imperceptible nod. A faint, unplaceable sense of disappointment settled inside my chest. Once the meeting ended, I dragged my feet packing up my belongings, hoping he would leave ahead of me. "Lexi." That low deep voice sounded right beside me again. A shiver ran down my spine as I spun around. Blake stood close by the conference room doorway. A couple of passing employees slowed their steps, wearing surprised looks. They obviously found it strange seeing us talking to one another, yet politely moved off to give us privacy. Only the two of us remained inside the large, quiet conference room. 9 o'clock tonight. He kept his voice steady as he looked straight at me. "Bring your materials, we will work overtime." "Okay." He nodded once and turned to walk away. I stood rooted to the spot, heart hammering wildly in my ribcage. Was he talking about actual office work overtime, or something completely different? Should I bring my laptop for work, or something else? At 6 o'clock sharp, official work hours ended. I lingered at my workstation, wishing I had never blurted out 9 o'clock. Maybe I ought to go home and do a full skincare routine first. A sudden thought hit me. I rushed over to the women's restroom to double-check my outfit. I wore a nice coordinated set with delicate lace trim. I breathed a quiet sigh of relief. I stalled until 6:30, still torn whether I should leave the building or stay. The 3 other female interns who had also confessed to Blake found the whole situation awkward and had already transferred off our project team. I was the only one left. To be honest, Blake was breathtakingly handsome. Like a priceless museum artifact protected behind bulletproof glass display panels. Even if I could never have him, simply getting to look at him brightened up my days. With that thought, I steeled my resolve. Take a risk, go for broke. Judging purely by that face and that physique. If something happened tonight, it would be well worth it. Youth should have no regrets. I stood up and headed toward the lounge area where Blake might be. Just as I rounded a hallway corner, Blake's friend called out to me. I was about to give you a call. I was worried you forgot all about it. I stared blankly. Huh? The intern mixer party. It's tonight? We booked a private booth in the high-rise building right next door. He walked over and clapped me lightly on the shoulder, giving me a look like I had terrible memory. Hurry up. Everyone else is already there waiting on you. Oh no. The tight nervous string inside me snapped completely. So when Blake said bring materials, he meant party supplies. I had read way too much into everything. Thank goodness I had not gotten ahead of myself. What a close call. The private karaoke lounge sat inside the adjacent office tower. An elevator full of chattering co-workers crowded together. I tried my best to keep my distance from Blake. Yet we still got squished together in the corner of the lift. He was tall and stood straight among the crowd. He tilted his head slightly, listening to someone next to him. And his profile looked stunning under the elevator ceiling lights. It seemed he sensed my stare. His eyelashes drooped and his eyes swept briefly over my figure. I immediately ducked my gaze down toward my shoe tips. The elevator chimed and the doors slid open. People streamed outward. I tried to merge into the crowd and get away from him. A warm hand suddenly wrapped gently, yet firmly, around my wrist. I twisted my head in complete surprise. Blake, don't rush off. He kept his voice so low only the two of us could hear. It vibrated deep like the lowest string of a cello, making my eardrums tingle. Blake, let's figure out our escape route first. Escape route? What escape route? He tilted his head down and looked toward me. Hallway lights flickered across his face as he pulled up the faintest hint of a smile. Voice soft as a feather brushing against nerves. Figure out where we can sneak off to later. Sneak off to where? You were the one who suggested 9 o'clock. He spoke slowly and deliberately, his eyes scanned our surroundings. I had no idea you were into risky, thrill-seeking stuff. My mind went blank with shock. Oh my God, he thought I had proposed 9 o'clock as a time to sneak away together. This was all a huge misunderstanding. I was just an innocent, naive girl. Don't worry. He paused, maintaining his calm tone. I will play along with what you want. Me. Everything was ruined. Inside the karaoke private booth, my coworkers sang loudly off-key. I sat right next to Blake, utterly ill at ease. Every person around kept sneaking glances our direction. Card players, dice game players, people grabbing drinks. Blake sat with his long legs casually crossed and spent most of his time replying to emails on his phone. All messages were written in fluent English. I needed to get some distance away. I inched silently along the edge of the sofa, trying to slide further away. Where are you going? He muttered, voice carrying a faint note of displeasure. Don't wander off. Dude, this booth is tiny. Where exactly am I supposed to run? Under the sofa cushions? Also, that coworker sitting nearby was practically growing antennae, eavesdropping on every word. Noticing the nosy onlooker, Blake locked his phone and drawled. If you vanish, I will end up sorting through all the project documentation by myself during overtime hours. The eavesdropping coworker lost interest and wandered away. Soft instrumental music started playing from the speakers and caught my attention. It was an old favorite song of mine. Want to sing? Blake held a microphone out toward me. a duet love song. Do you know this one? He asked once more. I nodded my head. He placed the mic into my hand. Several co-workers who had mocked me in the women's restroom stared over with jaws practically dropping open. Blake had a beautiful singing voice, and I kept decent pitch without going off-key. As our duet neared its end, a heavy bang echoed as the booth door swung wide open. A young woman dressed in a chic tweed dress stepped inside, her makeup flawless. This was Maya Carter, rumored to be Blake's childhood family friend who openly chased after him. She glared straight at me, and the whole room fell into awkward silence for a moment. Quickly, someone tried to defuse the tension. Maya, come sit. She grabbed the microphone and queued up song after song. Fast-track pop ballads, slow dance tracks, jazz, R&B, folk, country music. Was she here to fight over a man or compete in a singing championship contest? Lexi, are you humiliating me on purpose? I pulled my hands back where I had been clapping for her performance. So even clapping for you makes you mad, huh? Hey Emph. She flopped down into the seat opposite me holding a glass of wine. Lexi, is it? Yeah. Those old-style songs you picked just now, isn't your taste a little corny? Every set of eyes in the room turned toward us. I tugged at the corner of my mouth and replied. People say classics become classics precisely because they stand the test of time. Unlike some fleeting pop hits that sound fun but get forgotten instantly. I mimicked her tone a little. Perhaps. Good taste really does take some life experience to develop. A few quiet suppressed laughs came from people sitting nearby. Maya's smile froze solid, and fury burned in her eyes. Overcome with embarrassment, she lifted her wine glass and hurled its contents straight at my face. Everything unfolded in the blink of an eye. I tried to dodge, but my reflexes were too slow. I braced myself for cold liquid hitting my skin. It never arrived. Blake caught her wrist in time, his grip so tight she cried out in pain. The glass slipped out of her grasp and wine splattered all over Blake's shirt. A few drops landed on his pale neck and jaw. Dark red stains spreading across the front of his shirt and cuffs. Time seemed to stand still. The booth went deathly quiet, only the background love song track kept playing. Maya's face turned deathly pale. I'm sorry, Blake, I didn't mean it, I aimed it at her. Her words tumbled out in a nervous stammer. I truly didn't intend for this to happen. Blake said nothing, glanced down at his stained clothing, his brows barely drawing together. He grabbed a handful of paper napkins, wiped his neck and hands roughly, and spoke coldly. I'm going to clean myself up. He pulled open the booth door and walked out. Maya shot me a venomous glare before her friends pulled her back to sit down. She spoke loud enough for everyone to overhear. What are you so smug about? He already has someone he cares about. Even if it isn't me, it will never be you. You ought to give up already. She rambled on about many different things, and I pretended not to care while listening closely for key pieces of information. Blake supposedly had some long-held unrequited crush from years ago. I squeezed my empty orange-juice cup, my fingertips turned cold. This could very well be a classic manipulation trick straight out of romance novels. Besides, if he already had feelings for another woman, why would he make plans to work overtime with me? That seemed pretty sketchy. I remained skeptical, but just in case, I mentally called Blake a player inside my head. My resolve firmed up. This would just be a consensual one-night fling. After the internship finished, we would go our separate ways and never contact each other again. I ordered myself a cup of coffee to get mentally ready for the overtime session ahead. The door opened and Blake walked back inside. He looked like he had just given everyone an eyeful. His outer blazer was gone, and his damp dress shirt clung tight to his torso, clearly outlining his defined abdominal muscles with raw, unrestrained sex appeal. He frowned down at himself. This stain won't wash out. It looks terrible. I need to go change clothes. He gathered his belongings and paused in the doorway to glance back toward me. Blake, Lexi, come with me. Every single person in the room swiveled their eyes toward us. I finished my coffee in one big gulp and grabbed my bag to follow him. Maya burned bright red with jealousy, and Blake's friend whistled loudly. Blake stayed perfectly calm, Don't get the wrong idea. We are heading over to finish our overtime work. I added, yes, overtime work? Blake brought me to a luxury hotel suite in the adjacent building, owned by his family's corporate group. Every corner exuded expensive opulence. He hung his blazer up on the coat rack. Would you like anything to eat or drink? I can have room service send it up. No thank you. I stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows staring out at the glittering Seattle night skyline stretching like a river of stars. I heard fabric rustling behind me and spun my head around. Blake tossed his stained shirt into the laundry hamper. He stood completely bare-chested, his tall physique highlighted by warm lamplight, giving off a powerful, charged aura. He tilted his head and looked toward me. Want to join me? He meant the bathroom shower. I stiffened and waved my hands awkwardly. You go first. He let out a small laugh and walked off without pressing me further. Shower water started running, and silence filled the room except for the loud thumping of my own heartbeat. Was this actually going to happen? I had gotten rejected not long ago, yet everything had flipped around so fast. My pulse raced. I paced back and forth across the hotel carpet, desperate for something to calm my nerves. Then I remembered my laptop, my real overtime work partner. I pulled my notebook computer out of my bag, opened up a Word document, and instantly felt refreshed and energized to get down to business. I dove deep into editing work, completely absorbed in the task at hand. I never even noticed when Blake stepped out of the bathroom. Lexi, he came to a stop standing right in front of me. I lifted one hand without looking up. Just give me one more second, I need to finish this paragraph. A hint of real irritation colored his voice. Did you actually come over here just to do office overtime work? I snapped back to reality, remembering I was alone inside a hotel room with this gorgeous man. I quickly saved my document and shut the laptop lid. I was just killing some time. I am standing right here in front of you, and your first move is to save your file. He sounded genuinely annoyed. Even if the world ended, I would always save my documents first. Before I could make any more excuses, he leaned in and kissed me hard, pulling me down onto the bed. Don't throw my laptop around. Please don't toss my clothes everywhere. My pants, overtime work. The overtime session spiraled out of control, wildly out of control. The overtime work eventually came to an end. I could not believe how quickly it was all over. Blake held me tight in his arms, his breathing heavy and labored. He seemed rather flustered. After a moment of thought, I whispered softly, "Was that your first time?" "Shut up," he snapped, embarrassed and flustered. "Okay, I got it now." I tried to comfort him clumsily. First times are always like this. I am also a first-timer, so I totally understand how you feel. My words got cut off by another forceful kiss. That would turn out to be the most regretful thing I had ever said in my entire life. Round 2 of overtime work commenced. This time it went completely wild. We moved from the bathroom, to the sofa, to the guest room bed, to the desk surface, and finally over into the kitchen area. While gazing out at the high-rise night view, I cried inward for the 800th time. I wished I had never opened my big mouth, and begged him to let me clock out for the day. Blake paid my pleas no mind. It is still early. Why are you already trying to quit? The sky outside was practically turning bright. We dragged ourselves back into the bathroom for a hot bath, my head spinning. As overtime dragged on, I got to witness Blake's true stamina. Of course, wealthy heir like him would not stop after just a couple rounds. I really should have ordered 3 cups of coffee ahead of time. Early in the morning, the alarm went off. I whimpered and reminded Blake, "We are going to be late for corporate work. We need to head into the office." My calf got squeezed firmly, and I got tugged right back underneath the bed covers. As everyone knows, hardcore overtime does not require sleep. Blake lifted his head slightly. His handsome jawline glistened with a little dampness. He murmured soothingly, "Relax, we will take care of you before we go into the office." "Me? I'm full already," he replied. "No you are not." "Me?" He insisted I needed more feeding. I squirmed and fought back. "Pause this overtime. If we are late we get docked pay." Can I at least run downstairs to swipe my work badge at the office tower next door? We can clock in from right here. He leaned down and kept going, voice muffled. I tried opening my work app on my phone. Sure enough, the remote clock-in function actually registered my attendance. Life is so easy for rich heirs. You can punch in for work straight from your hotel bed. What a spoiled young master. Time flew by fast. My internship period passed quickly, and Blake and I built up quite the overtime work rhythm. Every day, we finished our private overtime session and remotely clocked in before slowly making our way over to the corporate building. Every extra minute we could slack off felt wonderfully refreshing. Before I knew it, it was the final day of my internship. Co-workers exchanged goodbyes and said they would keep in touch. I cleaned personal files off my work laptop and stared at Blake's contact profile, wondering whether I ought to delete his number. I had no clue if we would keep meeting up in the future. Truth be told, those overtime work-filled days had been incredible. The young heir really delivered. Stunning good looks, perfect atmosphere, and impressive stamina. He was unbelievably thoughtful whenever we went out in public too. If I so much as glanced at a luxury handbag through a store window, or casually mentioned a high-fashion runway show, shortly afterward those things would show up in my hands under excuses like, happened to pass by the shop. I just happened to have an extra ticket. I kept suggesting we split costs 50-50, yet he always refused. More than once I caught myself imagining I was his official girlfriend. One day out of curiosity, looked up the price tag of a handbag he said he just happened to grab for me. I had to count the trailing zeros 8 times before I could believe the total. At that moment I truly understood what I could not afford this even if I sold myself really meant. Shock gave way to complicated mixed feelings. A quiet voice in the back of my head kept reminding me. Rumors said he had some long-time unrequited crush. After work that day, a strange new contact sent me a friend request. The note read, "Stuff you want to know about Blake." This trope felt all too familiar. I immediately thought of Maya Carter. I accepted the request and started typing out sharp retorts. The other person sent me a cloud storage link instead. Take a look. I frowned, yet curiosity got the better of me. My browser loaded the private shared file page. The file name was just a single letter, R. My eyes widened reading the storage space indicator. 1007 GB. What in the world? Blake's complete life archive? Even with fast corporate Wi-Fi, downloading 100 GB compressed archive would take ages. Also, it was quitting time, and my coworkers were all packing up to leave. I closed my laptop and planned to download the whole file once I got back to my apartment. My internship came to an end, and I returned to regular university student life. My meetups with Blake grew far less frequent. He seemed swamped with work. His text replies got shorter and there were longer gaps between messages. I ran into one of his college friends on campus once. He mentioned Blake had been traveling overseas working on major investment projects lately. My daily routine went back to normal. Attending lectures, eating meals, joking around with my dorm roommates. Still, on quiet late nights or walking past certain familiar locations, my thoughts would drift back to those days. This outcome was what I had anticipated from the start, I reminded myself. One afternoon, my roommate and I wandered around the downtown food market. The air smelled of spicy hot pot skewers and assorted street food spices, full of lively everyday atmosphere. We sat down inside a dessert shop to get something sweet to start our meal. On such a hot summer day, a bowl of waxberry shaved ice was exactly what we needed. Suddenly, someone pulled out the chair opposite our table and sat down. I lifted my head in surprise. It was Blake, whom I had not seen in quite a while. His hair looked a little shorter, making his already sharp facial features even more defined. His innate noble bearing and cool aloof expression stood out sharply against the casual bustling street environment. Yet he remained strikingly handsome. "Blake, is this seat taken?" His voice was not loud, yet it cut clearly through surrounding noise. My roommate knew nothing of our history, she just thought a handsome stranger wanted to share our table. Her cheeks flushed and she moved her bag out of the way. "No, it's empty, please sit." We had not met for a long time, and I felt awkward. I kept my head down eating my waxberry ice. My phone vibrated. I glanced down and saw incoming messages from Blake. Baby, your skirt is way too short. Who exactly are you trying to attract? In reality, I was wearing a totally normal-length casual skirt. I lifted my eyes. He rested one elbow on the table, head propped on his hand, staring down at the menu. His long eyelashes looked perfect, his whole posture calm and proper. Me. Blake, you look absolutely smoking hot, babe. Blake, that skirt is still way too tight on you. I typed back. My roommate is sitting right here next to me. Blake, the skirt could stand to be even shorter. Blake, shorter would look better. My roommate secretly texted me. He is so dreamy, total cool guy vibe. I thought to myself, this guy is nothing but a shameless flirt. We finished our shaved dessert quickly. My roommate had prior commitments and headed off, leaving Blake and me. Alan, he smiled faintly. Shall we go? Me. Go where? Blake, let's take a closer look at that skirt. Inside an unused old university lecture hall, the skirt wound up completely discarded. When we walked back outside, the sky had darkened, and fine light rain began to fall, dampening everything. Blake held my hand as we walked. How do you want to celebrate your birthday? I felt surprised he even remembered my birthday. I haven't decided yet. All right. He walked me back to my dormitory building entrance. I already have a present ready for you. He leaned down and kissed me, then turned and left. I watched his retreating back and felt an unexpected twinge of reluctance to see him go. I wandered back into my dorm room in a daze and booted up my laptop. I suddenly noticed that the huge 100 gigabyte compressed file had finished downloading. I opened it. Wow, it really was a full archive. Maya really had gone all out gathering material. Everything was neatly sorted. Scanned groovitas from kindergarten, middle school military returning video clips, official event recordings, and private candid footage from high school activities. Truly an unofficial comprehensive growth record of Blake Rayner. She was also incredibly lazy. She dumped every single file in there without trimming clips to highlight key moments. Maybe she thought just tossing in a few childhood-free scenes would be enough to wound my feelings. Unfortunately, I did not share her childhood-free bias. All I saw in the footage was Maya constantly trying to press herself up against Blake, while Blake kept physically leaning away or turning his head away in visible annoyance. Nothing interesting showed up. I fast-forwarded through most of the material. Suddenly, the playback froze on one clip. It was behind-the-scenes footage filmed backstage at an arts festival. A young woman in a formal floor-length gown sat at a grand piano. Her profile looked elegant as her fingers flowed across the piano keys. Teenage Blake leaned against the doorframe and watched her play quietly. The camera only captured his side profile, yet his gaze was focused, peaceful, and held a rare soft warmth. The picture froze on this single frame. My fingers tightened around my mouse, and my breath caught in my throat. This must be his long-held unrequited crush. That faint little self-deceiving hope deep inside my heart died completely. My birthday was only a few days away. I felt far sadder than I had been back when my confession got rejected. When my best friend heard, I was heartbroken. She generously sent over contact info for dozens of male models she followed for visual enjoyment. Girl, out with the old, in with the new. I will organize a party for you, live it up, forget about that lousy guy. On my birthday, I put on elegant makeup, wore a delicate feminine dress, and slipped on high heels. With a solemn feeling of burying my old love and starting fresh, I showed up at the upscale private party booth my best friend booked. Dim mood lighting played across the room, loud upbeat music blared. Expensive wine bottles and fruit platters covered every table surface. Several attractive, charismatic young men gathered around, and the atmosphere quickly turned lively. I grabbed a drink someone handed me and tossed it back, letting the burning taste drown out the ache inside my chest. My phone vibrated inside my purse. I pulled it out and saw the contact name Blake lighting up the screen. Under the influence of alcohol, I stared at the name for 2 seconds, then firmly declined the call. That was still not enough. I swiped my finger and deleted his entire contact entry. Peace at last. I forced a smile and accepted another glass of wine offered by one of the male models. I was starting to get a little buzzed when the heavy booth room door got pushed open hard from outside. It was Blake. He wore a sharp black dress shirt, like he had rushed straight over from some formal business event. His eyes looked dark and menacing as he scanned over the male models surrounding me. Several young men instinctively stepped backward. Lexi. His voice was not loud, but it carried icy cutting power. Most of my drunken buzz vanished instantly, yet I stubbornly pretended not to hear him and turned my head away. One of the male models beside me still tried passing me another glass of alcohol and stretched his hand toward me. "Get all of you out of here." Blake raised his voice sharply, filled with the commanding pressure of someone raised in power. The private booth fell utterly silent. People who recognized Blake scrambled to their feet and whispered warnings to everyone else. "Let's go, hurry up, we cannot afford to anger Mr. Rayner." The whole crowd fled in panic, including my best friend who had slipped toward the door the second trouble started brewing. The last person carefully closed the booth door behind them. Only Blake and I remained inside, surrounded by messy leftover cups and lingering alcohol fumes. Blake strode over until his shadow fell all over me. "Blake, what is this supposed to mean?" Fueled by alcohol and hurt feelings, I lifted my chin and shot back. "What about you? I was only gone overseas for a handful of days." He almost laughed out of anger. "So you break up with me and come running to a place like this?" Me. "Since when exactly were we officially dating?" Blake. "Oh really? So you just used me and then walked away without a second thought?" Me. "Used you? Go chase after your so-called longtime crush." Blake knitted his brows tight. "What crush?" Tears welled up uncontrollably in my eyes. I told him everything I had seen inside that 100-gigabit video archive. The booth fell quiet. Blake's rage slowly faded away, replaced by total stunned disbelief. "Blake, that is my older sister, my biological full-blooded older sister. She is 2 years older than me, she studied piano for years and was competing overseas at that time. Our family filmed that backstage clip as a souvenir. I got scolded countless times because my facial expression looked terrible in the footage." Me. Tears still clung to my eyelashes. I sat there completely dumbfounded. I wanted the ground to swallow me whole. I lowered my head and sipped wine to hide my embarrassment. My brain raced trying to salvage some dignity. "Then, why did you reject my confession, and then end up spending that night with me? You are the one who acted improperly." Blake sighed and rubbed at his temples, looking worn out. "I have secretly had a crush on you for years. When you came forward confessing to me, could hardly believe my luck. Of course I would not say no." "What?" I jerked my head upward in shock. Blake told me the full story of his long-standing crush on me. It turned out we had met long before our internship. Back when I was a college freshman, I volunteered at a senior care community center, talking for hours with an elderly lady with poor hearing. Blake had also volunteered at that same event. He said the sunlight had been perfect that day. The sight of me kneeling beside the grandmother, tilting my head and smiling, had stuck in his memory ever since. As for the confession incident, he massaged his temples showing a headache. That whole week I had been pulling all-nighters on a huge corporate project and suffered brutal migraine headaches. When the first girl came up confessing feelings, I automatically said I was not looking for a relationship at that moment. All I wanted was to get back to my office and rest. He looked toward me with a mix of helplessness and regret. I never imagined multiple girls would line up to confess to me one after another. By the time I realized what had happened, you had already run away. I wanted to find you and explain myself, but it felt awkward and out of tableau. Since you were interning in the same company, I thought plenty of chances would pop up. Instead, I ended up getting that wild text message from you saying you wanted me. Thinking back on it, the whole idea of a line of girls waiting to confess their feelings really was absurd. Only youth could dream up such scenarios. "Do you have anything else you want to argue about?" He leaned in a little, with a hint of settling old scores glinting in his eyes. I mumbled softly, "Nothing left." "Blake." "Good," I hurried to add. All those male models were just my best friend's contacts. I only drank alcohol, nothing else happened. He lifted me up off the sofa in his arms. I panicked. What are you doing? Blake, overtime work. And so, our shameless overtime work session started all over again. Thank you for listening to today's story. On a scale from 1 to 10, what score would you give this short story? If you enjoyed this video, please like and share it with your friends. We would love to read your thoughts in the comment section. Remember to subscribe to our channel for more exciting short stories. Stay tuned for our next episode.